I've helped D2C brands generate $87 million in email revenue, making one brand go from $60K to $703K a month, and another from $292K to $1.2 mil a month. And in this video, I'm gonna show you the exact 9 strategy system that I use to take these brands from 5% email attribution to 30 to even 40% plus from email. And here's the thing, most brands think that email is just about sending, discount codes, and that's really why they're stuck at 5 to 10% email attribution. So in this video, I'm gonna cover everything that can double your revenue with emails, from fixing deliverability and list growth to the exact flows in campaigns that convert, to SMS and testing, the testing system that keeps improving your results month after month. And if you're serious about scaling with email and SMS, then of course subscribe to this channel. And let's get started. All right, strategy 1, deliverability. And this is an invisible killer for a lot of brands, and they're not even aware of it. So as you can see on the screen, this is what it looks like when Klayvio warns you that you're getting a high spam complaint rate, but you could also be landing in your audience's spam folder without getting this warning, all right? And the best proxy for seeing if you're landing in the spam folder is your overall open rate. So if your open rates are really bad, then odds are you're landing in the promotions tab or spam folder. If your open rates are pretty good, then you're probably fine. All right, so why are you being sent to the spam folder? Well, it's a couple things. Really what it comes down to is your email sender reputation, and that's affected by 2 main factors. So number 1 is content quality. Obviously, if you're sending super spammy or super salesy content, people are more likely to mark that as spam, or if it's just overall low quality. And segmentation. So if you're blasting it to people who are just unengaged or have a high bounce rate or whatever, then you're gonna get a really bad email sender reputation, and then Google spam filter is then gonna, start marking you as spam and send you to the spam folder. So how do we fix this? So phase 1, first you want to do is remove everybody who's disengaged, all right? So you're going to want to build a segment of people who haven't opened their emails in the past 120 days, let's just say, and then start excluding them from all your campaigns. And then you're going to want to implement what I call the email deliverability protocol. And essentially what we're doing here is we've sent to really tight engaged segments. So these are people who have engaged with the emails or the website in the past 14 days. Send all your email campaigns to that segment only for 2 weeks, let's just say, and the goal here is to maximize your open rates. Now, once your open rates are consistently above 60% for like a week or so, then you start gradually expanding the segment that you're sending the campaigns to. So on week 3, that might look like sending to a 30-day engaged segment. So essentially you would clone that 14-day engaged segment and then change the criteria from 14 days to 30 days. So what does that look like? So anybody who's opened an email, clicked an email, was active on site, added something to their cart, viewed a product, or started checkout, these are all examples of somebody who's engaged with the email or the website. So that's what your engaged segments should look like. And once you're getting good open rates on that 30-day engaged segment, then we're going to repeat the process and increase the segment to a broader segment the following week. So what does that look like? So week 4, let's just say, after we just do a week of sending to this 30-day engaged segment, we'll start sending to the 60-day engaged segment. So anybody who has interacted with your emails or the websites at least once in the past 60 days. And then once you're getting good open rates consistently on that segment, then we're going to increase the segment size one more time to a 90-day engaged segment. Then once you're getting 40 to 50% open rates on that segment, then you're pretty much good to go. You could just send to your normal engaged segment, which probably is going to be anywhere from 90 to 120 or 180-day engaged segment if your deliverability is really good. Strategy number 2 is list growth. Now, on a lot of these brands that I audit, they either have a super suboptimal form, so their list is growing really slowly, or they don't have any form at all, and they're like, oh, like we tried a pop-up form and it decreased our store conversion rate. Now, for a D2C brand, your email list is by far your most valuable asset. And if you're not aggressively capturing emails, you're leaking tons of revenue and potential customers at the top of your funnel funnel and you're spending a ton on ads and have nothing to show for it when, most of them come to your website and then bounce from your website without giving you their email. Now, that being said, if you have a super suboptimal pop-up form, then yes, of course, you're gonna have really bad bounce rates and it's not gonna be worth having it a lot of the time. So that's why it needs to be set up and structured correctly. And what we found across our clients to work really well is number one, obviously having a clear offer. Why are they giving you their email? Number two, pre-qualify them with either a yes or no micro commit step on step one before you ask for their email, or you could ask them a quiz question, which I'll go over here in a second. You want to make sure that you give the discount code to them on the success page of the sign up form. You also want to make sure that the pop-up form is mobile optimized because that's where most of the traffic is going to be coming from. And one of our secret weapons that we use on all of our clients and we recommend to all of our clients is using Alia pop-up forms instead of Klayvio. So Alia is a Shopify app and you're going to get way higher conversion rates than you are on Klayvio pop-ups. So for example, you can see right here, this is one of our brands that's doing $4 million per month in the consumer packaged goods space. So they sell, consumable goods, and 11% is a lot higher than we were able to do on Klayvio with a very similar form. We were able to max out at like 6%. So massive improvement in the submission rate just by switching to Alia. And Alia also allows you to use more interactive elements in the pop-up form to increase submission rates, such as this scratch to win thing, which works really well for some brands, but of course you got to test it out. Now, another great thing about Alia is using zero-party data. So basically getting them to fill out certain information about themselves so you could sort of categorize them into different segments based on their answers. So for example, with this dog clothing brand, we get them to answer what size dog that they have. Now, we're able to create segments on that based on, the size of their dog, but the cool thing is we're able to personalize their welcome flow content based on, what segment they're in. So for instance, if they have a large dog, we send them through, welcome flow path 1. And if they have a small dog, we send them through welcome flow path 2. And basically just tailor and personalize the welcome flow to them based on, their quiz answer. So obviously that increases the conversion rate of the welcome flow because it's more tailored towards them and the products that we're recommending to them are obviously more customized to them. But we're also able to use those segments for micro segment campaigns, which, is basically just sending campaigns to different parts of your email list based on, certain traits that they all share in common versus just blasting out, generic campaigns to your entire list. We're able to target your list more accurately, let's just say. All right, now before we jump into the automation section, if you saw those pop-ups and you're thinking, yeah, I need something like that on my site, I actually put together a guide for you. It's called the Pop-Up Forms Guide. It is everything that you need to actually build one like this, from, how to set it up to real life examples. And it's completely free, and the link is in the description. All right, strategy 3 is the segmentation architecture, otherwise known as the targeting system. All right, and really what this is how do we send as tailored and custom content to the respective segments as much as possible. Now, the problem that most brands face is that they don't really have any sort of segmentation strategy, and they send the same message to everybody on their list. Obviously, that's inefficient. You're going to be sending messages to people who aren't going to, resonate with that. It doesn't allow you to tailor offers to people depending on their intent level or likelihood of purchasing from you at full price. So how we go about it is we have a 4-tier behavioral segmentation system where we sort of segment them based on how they interact with the brand or their behavior, if you will. So first segment, we have engaged 120 days, and generally are going to want to hit this segment 3 to 4 times per week. And the content is typically going to be, sort of standard promotional and educational mix. Promotional side, this is going to be new product launches, seasonal sales, etc. And on the educational side, we're educating them about the brand, the product, the problems that the product solves, how to use the product, separating the product and your brand versus competitors. So comparing against substituting solutions to your customer. So the second segment is the non-purchasers. So this is anybody who has been on your list for at least 60 days, let's just say, and has purchased 0 times over all time. And you want to hit these people a couple times a month or once a month. And essentially what you want to send them in terms of content, some sort of limited time offer. Because these people, they've been on your list, they've seen your content, they've been through your flows, and they didn't buy it full price. So you're going to need to be a bit more aggressive in converting them at, a bit of a discount. Now, it doesn't need to be some sort of, crazy aggressive discount. And honestly, what we see work pretty well is just repackaging your welcome offer. So if you're offering 15% off on your welcome flow, you could literally just send your non-purchasers a 15% off limited time offer, expires in 48 days. And you're not really giving real discount, essentially resending your welcome flow to them, but repackaged in different language so that they think it's some sort of flash sale. All right, the third segment I want to talk about is the win back segment. So this would be anybody who has purchased at least 120, 180 days previously, but hasn't made any purchases since then. They're essentially lapsed customers. Now, obviously we have a win back flow in place, which is fine, but the difference here with the win back segment is we could go more aggressive on the discount because we know that they already don't convert on your highest offer on your win back flow. And number two, we're able to use the urgency a lot more aggressively. So for instance, in this case, if your win back flow is 15% off or 20% off, in this one, since they're worth more to us at 75% of the price versus 0% if they churn, which they're about to, then it makes sense to give them sort of a Hail Mary offer of 25% off. So you might message this segment, flash sale, 25% off, 48 hours. That'll work pretty well. If they don't convert on that, then, they're definitely not going to be converting at full price. So you want to send the win back campaign once every month or so. You could probably do twice a month, but we typically do once a month so that it doesn't get sort of stale. And then the fourth segment is your VIP or high value customers. So these are people who typically have bought 3 times or more. You could customize that based on your brand. You can make it order value over time, but we use 3 purchases over time, and we'll send 1 of these per month. And essentially you don't need to do anything crazy, but you need to sort of reach out to them and let them know that they've been recognized for being a high value customer, whether that's early access to new products, VIP access to certain sales like Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You could give them a special discount on certain items that you're trying to clear out of your inventory, and then frame it as some sort of, exclusive gift for their loyalty to your brand. Basically, you could just give them a bunch of stuff that you would have given away anyway, but frame it in such a way where they view it as a gift for their loyalty. And obviously what gets reinforced gets repeated. They're being reinforced for purchasing from you a lot. So now they're more likely to keep purchasing from you. So that's a VIP segment. Now, the main purpose of all of this and the main result that you're going to get from targeting these core segments in this way is, number one, obviously you're going to get a lot more conversions. So people who are on your engaged list are going to buy at full price. People who are non-purchasers, they're going to use their welcome discount essentially. So that's basically extra conversions for your welcome flow. Win back campaigns, you're going to convert people who otherwise were going to be worth 0. You're going to convert them at, a discount, but it's better than, converting them at 0 with a 0 cost per acquisition. VIPs, this is how you extend your lifetime value and, the retention rates of your customers. So now I'm going to go over all your automations or flows and the optimal strategy that we use for our clients. And this one, we're specifically talking about consumer packaged goods, so like supplements, cosmetics, etc. But it's generally going to apply about 80% to most brands. In this particular example, the brand that I was talking about earlier, it's a supplement brand. They actually didn't have a welcome flow. They also didn't have a pop-up form. I'm going to show you some examples from a similar brand that sort of illustrates the overall strategy that we have found to work the best for these types of brands. So before we dive into it, obviously your welcome flow is going to be your most important, highest leverage flow, because this is the first touch point that traffic has when they opt into your guys' guys' email list, and this is sort of their highest intent, highest probability moment that they buy from you. So it's important to nail the welcome flow to maximize the odds that they become a customer of yours instead of just sort of sitting on your list. So on email 1, essentially what you want to do is you want to focus heavily on the offer, which in this case is free gifts with your purchase. But in terms of the copy, what you want to do is focus heavily on sort of the problem, which in this case is, like if you deal with mood swings, etc., and then position your product as a solution, or tell them why, like what's causing the problem. Well, in today's modern environment, people are lacking, XYZ, like whole food. So we created this whole food supplement and it fixes all your problems. That's essentially what you want to be putting in the copy. Problem plus solution. On welcome email 2, this is where we talk about the actual mechanism, where it's like, have you ever wondered how this product works? Well, it's because it contains, organ supplements and whole food nutrition, which does X, Y, and Z. You also want to restate the offer and go into more depth in terms of, how it actually works. Like in this one, it's the ingredients. Basically just increases the legitimacy of the product in the perception of your customers. In their head, it increases the likelihood of it working for them, where it's like, oh yeah, it makes sense why I feel this way. Oh, it makes sense why this product would, fix it for me. Also at the bottom of the email, you want to put a social proof section, customer testimonials and stuff to show that the product obviously works. So on this third email, this is a strategy you can try. We don't do it with every brand, but on this particular brand, we switched up the offer. So they didn't buy the welcome flow offer on emails 1 and 2. So in this one, we're giving them a subscription offer, 25% off your first subscription order. So that's the focus of this email here. Then of course, we're just going into more depth about, the product, how it works, problems it solves, etc. And then going later on into the flow past email 3, here's where it sort of really depends on the brand. And this is where we A/B test different things. So we test out, the order of the emails that we send out, like in what sequence do we send it out. But essentially the main sort of content angles that we found to work the best is anything educational about the product, anything educational about the brand. Highly recommend using social proof as well. And at some point, whether it's email 4, email 5, etc., but you want to restate the welcome offer. Sometimes you could use a plain text format. That also works. Restate the welcome offer, but let them know that it's expiring in 24 hours. So what you'll see is that people join the list, they get the welcome offer, they read all the content, and at a certain point, they just forget about, the welcome offer, or it's kind of just there. And it's like, I'll buy it when I feel like it. This one sort of forces them to make a decision. All right, either you're going to buy it or you're not, because it's expiring in 24 hours. So this is sort of their last, shot at buying it at a discount. And one of the emails that we send towards the end, this could be after that previous email restating the welcome offer, is the plain text message from the founder. So this works really well for building a personal connection. For a lot of people, they think that a real person is writing to them, just because a lot of people don't understand email marketing. So it's very powerful, and it's one that I like to include with all of our clients. All right, so strategy number 5 is the abandoned cart optimization. So this is obviously an extremely important part of your email marketing channel, just because it's your second highest converting flow. And it targets the highest intent people in your entire sort of ecosystem besides the welcome flow. It's typically going to be the second highest revenue generating flow. So if you have a really ineffective abandoned cart flow, you're going to lose a lot of people who are essentially layups. They're interested in your product. They added the product to their cart and then they bailed last minute. So you're losing a ton of sales if your flow isn't good. So for this brand, from this particular case study that I'm going through, I audited their account and they were previously doing 0.7 to 2.9% conversion rate per email, which is pretty bad. And what I mean by that is, like, one of the emails did 2.9% conversion, one of them did 0.7. Obviously that is a very low conversion rate. After we built everything out for them, we got them to 5 to 6% conversion rate for each email. All right, so that's a massive improvement. That's like a double, if not triple in some cases, on some of these emails. So the 3 critical problems that I documented about this particular brand was, number 1, weak conversion levers. So they were missing social proof, customer reviews, testimonials, things like that. They had a pretty attractive 90-day money-back guarantee that they did not feature at all in the abandoned checkout. They didn't didn't feature the unique selling points in their abandoned checkout emails. They had free shipping for, if they're over a certain threshold. They didn't emphasize that whatsoever, even though a good percentage of the people, who are abandoning their cart would have qualified for free shipping. Problem 2 was the email format, and this is pretty common. Not every brand does this, but I do see it pretty commonly, where all the emails are plain text, but they were like super long text. Now, the problem with this is like 80% of people who receive your emails, who are trying to buy your product, aren't going to be reading everything word for word. The vast majority are not going to be reading to the bottom. So how the typical buyer consumes emails is they scan your email, and if anything really stands out to them, whether it's a headline or certain visual, then they'll read that particular section and potentially purchase your product. But like these super long essays are extremely ineffective for e-commerce. Now, how do you market to these people based on, how they scan emails versus, reading them? So what's very effective with these people is visual hierarchy. So you need to draw their attention to very high impact sort of words, which in a lot of cases is going to be, the offer or anything to really grab their attention and show that your product has value. CTA buttons above the fold. This is obvious. Product images, especially for the more visual brands, and easy to scan benefit points in bullet point format versus, here's a long essay. What you want to do is tell them the unique selling points of the brand in, a visually interesting and digestible way. They read that, and it's like, oh, okay, like this brand and product is more valuable than the alternative because X, Y, and Z. Typically, more minimalistic is going to outperform the super long and convoluted emails. We do designed emails for the most part. You can do plain text emails, but I would keep it to 1 out of, how many emails you have in your checkout flow. So if you have 6, I would keep, 1 as plain text and the rest as designed. But within those designed emails, I would make it very minimalistic. And I'm going to show you an example here. All right, here's an example of one that we did for a brand. And as you can see, it's very minimalistic, and you want to keep the headline minimalistic and above the fold. Keep the call to action button above the fold, especially on mobile. Show them the dynamic product block, minimalistic text, and as you can see here at the bottom, those unique selling points in bullet point format. Like, what is the main reason that people buy from your brand versus competitors, and just condense those into bullet points. Now, this is the first email in their sequence. Later on, you want to cycle through different sort of selling elements, whether that's customer reviews, I would add that as well, and free shipping threshold, which I will cover here in a second. With the free shipping stuff, so essentially what you could do, and what I would recommend, is setting up a conditional split based on their cart value. So for instance, if you give free shipping on orders over $100, split it between, carts that are over 100 and carts that are under 100, and the people who are over 100, tell them they qualify for free shipping. That's literally it. We've run this A/B test, and you can increase the conversion of those people who qualify for free shipping by up to 40-50%, because the vast majority of them don't even know that they qualify for free shipping. Last part I want to talk about with the abandoned checkout flow is the overall incentive strategy. What should we be saying in each email? First email almost always should have 0 discount. A good amount of people just need a reminder and will buy at full price. Second email, you want to give them a smaller discount, so let's say 10% off, and that's because this is only being sent to the people who didn't buy at full price. So there are certain people who want to feel like they're getting a special deal. You actually don't need to go super aggressive with the discount here. You could test out 5%, 10%, etc., but you want to convert those people who need to feel like they're getting some sort of a deal. The third email, this gets sent after people receive that previous smaller discount. This one, you're going to offer a bigger discount. Make sure that is bigger than what you offer in the welcome flow, and obviously focus heavily on social proof and anything else that sort of addresses the main objection that you get from people for why they don't end up purchasing from you, whether it's the shipping costs, or they don't think that the product is legit, or what if it takes like 3 weeks to get here. Whatever the sort of main objection is, you want to handle it with some sort of elements at the bottom below the dynamic product block. And then the email after that, you could send a few reminders in between, but the last email in the checkout flow, you want it to be heavily focused on urgency. So repeat your biggest discount that you've offered them in the flow, but let them know that it's expiring. So urgency is extremely important, and essentially what you're going to be doing is converting the people who they like the product, the discount is good, so like the price makes sense to them, it's obviously a good deal, but there's sort of this last sort of inertia where it's like, I need to think about it. So you convert those people by letting them know, like, you could think about it, but the discount is expiring in 24 hours. So if you don't buy within the next 24 hours, you got to buy at full price. So, it's sort of up to you essentially. So that's the final email that actually typically gets, first or second highest conversion rate in the flow. And it's extremely important that you do it this way, this, flow overall, so that you're converting people at their maximum possible price. Like, you don't want to be giving them the biggest discount to people who would have bought at full price. All right, strategy 6, the subscription flow ecosystem. And this is really how you maximize your customer retention, repeat purchases, LTV, and minimize subscription churn rate. So for this particular client, and this was a supplement subscription brand, they actually came to us and they had 0 subscription flows. So they were losing a ton of monthly recurring revenue. So and also very important is what we found for our subscription clients is that you get anywhere from 3 to 5 times the LTV of somebody who buys on subscription versus somebody who buys on a one-time purchase. So here were the 7 missing flows for this subscription brand. So number 1 is the subscription onboarding flow. This basically just welcomes new subscribers, sets the expectation in terms of delivery schedule, how to manage their subscription if they need to pause it or postpone it, etc. And of course, emphasize the convenience and the savings of the subscription purchase that they just made. And the real goal here is just setting clear expectations. Flow 2 is the billing failed. So this is triggered immediately when the customer's payment fails. So let's say they're on subscription and their card doesn't work. We just send this one. It's basically saying we couldn't process your payment, and then it gives a CTA button allowing them to update their payment method. And the goal here obviously is to recover failed payments before the subscription cancels. Flow 3 is the card expiration flow. So this is sort of a proactive reminder about 7 days before the card expires. So it'll say something like your card ending in 1234 is going to be expiring soon. CTA button is of course update your payment method. Flow 4 is the skipped subscription order. This triggers when the customer skips an order and you basically say, hey, we noticed that you skipped your product delivery, and then you say the name of the product, and basically just checking in, is everything okay? Do we need to adjust your subscription schedule? And then give them a CTA link allowing them to adjust their frequency or to resume the normal schedule. And this is really important because if the customer doesn't have the option to adjust their schedule, then they end up with way too much product, and that's where they churn. Okay, so it's much better to allow them to postpone if they still have a lot of product that they haven't consumed yet. It's better that situation than them canceling because they're never going to resubscribe. Now the 5th flow is the date switch, and basically we're just helping the customers adjust the delivery timing. So basically you're just going to be asking them, hey, do you need to change your delivery date? Here's how. Giving them a self-service link to manage their subscription. The goal here obviously is to reduce the support burden and improve the flexibility on the customer's end. Flow 6 is the cancellation flow. So this triggers when the customer attempts to cancel. Basically, we're saying, hey, before you go, and then, sort of recovery message where you could offer them to pause their subscription, adjust the frequency, switch products. If that doesn't work, then we have a last chance incentive, discount on your next order, free gift. And the target here is saving 15 to 20% of cancellations. The 7th flow is the reactivation or cancellation win back. This triggers, let's say 30 days after the subscription cancels. And basically we're, coming to the clients. It's like, hey, we've missed you as a customer, and, here's what's new at the store since you left. And then also in this flow, you want to include an aggressive offer. So let's say it's up to 20% off your next subscription order if you rejoin. So the goal with all of this is to win back churn subscribers, reactivate people who do cancel their subscription, and obviously you're going to get a lot longer average subscription lifespan. All right, so we've covered the foundation and automation pillars of the entire strategy. Before we dive into the next pillar, which is about scaling, I have a free masterclass that goes even deeper into the full email and SMS system. It covers the exact segment structure, campaign frameworks, and every Klayvio setting behind that $87 million in email revenue that we've produced. And it's completely free, so check out the link in the description. All right, so now we're going into the third pillar of the strategy, which is scaling. So the seventh strategy that we use is campaign strategy. This is basically the active revenue engine, while the automations are basically running on autopilot. So for this particular brand that we were talking about, in their particular case, most of their campaigns were long form plain text, which works sometimes, but the reality is that 80% of people reading e-commerce emails are scanners, not readers. So they're not going to be reading an entire email word for word. So these people who scan emails, or scanners if you will, they need concise digestible content. They need strong visual hierarchy, so that means focusing the core message into the headers, bullets, and imagery. CTA above the fold on mobile, which is extremely critical, and easy decision making required from, you don't want them using their brain a whole lot to be able to make a purchase decision. Now, the other 20% of your audience are going to be the people who read the entire email, word for word. So these people are going to need the long form educational content, deep dives into the science and benefits and how it works and the ingredients, and story driven copy. Here's some examples of some of the campaigns that we've done for some of our clients. And what you want to do on the design side of things is for the people who do scan the emails, very important is that for every email you have a hero image or product shot. Give a 2 to 3 sentence concise body text. Header is superimposed onto the hero image above the product ideally. Limit it to below 5 to 7 words. Include the CTA above the fold, generally going to be a non-negotiable, just because you need them to take action in a way that they're actually seeing it, because most people don't read past the first scroll on email. 3 to 4 benefit bullets in a visually digestible way instead of writing it out as a sort of wall of text. You're also going to want to include social proof in the form of customer reviews, testimonials, UGCs, press mentions. If you were mentioned in Vogue or some reputable magazine, let's just say, then you're going to want to give a final CTA at the bottom. Now, the second format of campaigns is going to be the long form educational type content. And this is going to be a minority of the campaigns that you're going to want to send out, anywhere from 20 to 30%. And this is going to be sort of catering to the people who need more information before they make a purchase. Of course, this is going to depend on the type of brand that you have and the product you sell, but generally speaking, this format is going to be either plain text or minimal design, deep educational content, obviously, multiple CTAs throughout. And one mistake that I see a lot of brands do is they have a ton of text, this long form copy, and they don't have a CTA until the entire, the literal bottom of the email. So then they wonder why it doesn't convert. You're going to want to have a CTA in the first 30% of the text, and then towards the bottom after they've gotten a chance to read the entire thing. All right, now here's how we recommend auditing and optimizing your content strategy so that it becomes better and more effective over time. So at the end of each month, what we do is we audit the performance of campaigns by content, product focused campaigns, educational campaigns, testimonial or social proof campaigns. You have your limited time offers, you have new product launches. So a wide range of different content, and essentially what you want to do is group all of them together. Literally could throw it into Claude and have it come up with a spreadsheet for you and analyze it that way. But essentially you want to cut the lowest performing categories or do less of them, and highest performing categories, literally just do more of that. It's the most straightforward optimization process of all time, but barely anybody does it. All right, now the 8th strategy is SMS flow. Now, a few things you should know about SMS is that we've tested this extensively, and this always comes as a surprise to people, but generally just plain text is always going to outperform text plus an image for whatever reason. Adding an image doesn't seem to increase conversion rate really ever. We've A/B tested that. Even for like visual brands like jewelry, like plain text still beats it, and it's going to cost you a lot less. So that's what I would recommend for SMS. All right, strategy 9, testing and optimization. And this is really the improvement loop of your account and how you optimize it over time. So the problem is that most brands have a tendency to sort of set and forget their email marketing, specifically with the flows. Also with the campaigns too, you know, you get into a bit of routine, but most brands, they'll get to 20% revenue attributed to Klayvio and then never change anything and then wonder why they're stuck. So these are our frameworks for improving things over time. So the first one is going to be the content performance review. So essentially what we're doing here is we audit the campaigns by content bucket. I talked about that a bit in the campaign section, but essentially what we're doing here is we're identifying, you know, which buckets drive the highest revenue and which drive the lowest and get the worst engagement. And then all you do is you cut the lowest performers and double down on the highest performers. Step 2 is going to be the A/B testing calendar. All right. So here are the different categories that we've found to be the most effective for A/B testing. So subject lines, send times, so morning versus afternoon versus evening, send dates. So do we send it on a certain day of the week or weekdays versus weekends? Email formats, so catering to people who scan the email, you know, scanners, if you will, versus readers, people who read the email. Content buckets. And what we want to do here is for, you know, a certain month, we might want to focus more heavily on a certain type of content and then see how it performs overall versus, you know, another type of content. So the emphasis will change from month to month just to see how it affects things. So there it is, the complete email and SMS operating system. And this is the exact system that I used to generate over $87 million in email sales for our clients. And you're a D2C brand already doing over 50K a month and you want me to personally audit your Klayvio account and build this entire system for you, I actually guarantee a minimum $50,000 revenue increase in the first 45 days or you don't pay. I'll handle everything 100% done for you, from strategy flows, campaigns, SMS segmentation to ongoing optimization. So if that sounds interesting to you, there's a link in the description to book a call with me. If you want more content like this, then of course subscribe to this channel. And yeah, thanks so much for watching and let's go make some money.